Mi nombre es Erwin Reviera. Mis antepasados vienen del pueblo de Taos y yo soy heredero de los Mercedes. And I'm bilingual or multilingual. I wish I could speak in the language of my Taos ancestors or in Tewa, but I hope I speak with some common sense and convey to you the prayer of our ancestors. I speak mostly also as a grandfather and my responsibility to them, because as I was taught, whether I'm a Chicano from land grants or a Niño from Taos Pueblo, that we understand that what we do say today will have an impact upon 7 generations yet unborn. My grandmother has held my grandchildren, meaning there's 5 living generations in my family. But that still means I have a responsibility to my grandchildren's grandchildren to account for the shame and neglect that our generation is allowed to happen to be their herencia, their inheritance. I'm not here to debate the scientific information, but merely to say it's not dependable, can't be held accountable, and the only consistency beginning from when the Los Alamos laboratory started began at gunpoint when my children's ancestors were forced off of the Pajarito Plateau at gunpoint in the name of national security, with the promise that first rights of rescission would go back to those first descendants of that land, and they lied. There is no credibility by DOE or LANL, no proven accountability, and so whatever is said in any of the reports paid for by immoral money cannot be trusted. But what I do trust is the conviction of people that can speak truth to power and stand up to the corruption that Los Alamos is merely one example of. Those homesteaders that were removed by force, then bought off by silence in the settlement that was made of several $1 million hidden in a military appropriation thanks to Plutonium Pete Domenici, their story of injustice is yet to be told. The $7 million isn't enough to hide the truth of the injustice. Or what happened to the pueblos, because we know the power of the Jemez, which holds the largest caldera volcanic crater on Earth, and with many sacred sites that also were desecrated from the very beginning that those laboratories began. Then we had the Cerro Grande fire, and more sacred sites revealed, and illegal dumping that is beyond the records and the memory and the accountability of Los Alamos to admit to. And they want us to trust their technology. I don't, because technology over common sense. Cerro Grande, all you had to do was see if the wind was blowing. To tie this to the rest of the technological solutions of nuclear energy, nuclear power, nuclear terrorism, we have been victims at every aspect of the nuclear chain in Nuevo Mexico, beginning from the national sacrifice area of the Jackpile mine and the highest birth defects on earth of the Laguna Pueblo people, and that nothing will grow there, and that people cannot grow their corn, which is primary to all our prayers. But in the promise of jobs, as the Vaseline for what was to come, to all the way to WIP. And all they can come up with their technology is another landfill just built a little deeper. And nuclear energy and the promise for nuclear and energy independence is just another fancy way of boiling water. What's the technological gift? I also need to speak with the promise of the time that we know we are in. We are in the time of prophecy in native way. So I please ask this is not comments for your applause, so that none of the sacredness of what needs to reach your heart is shaken off of you. We are in the time of prophecy, and Aztecs call this time Itzolin, time of earth movement. Our young people are fulfilling prophecy because they want to return, and they're asking to learn the old prayers. Our younger generations prepared to sacrifice by fasting for the good of the people. And they will have a memory to hold us accountable to what we have done or not done by our neglect to assure future generations. The drilling into the geothermal pools, what we have heard from experts about seismic activity, only correlates what our ancestors have told us in their warnings of what we are attempting and what risk that we have placed upon all of us. So my last message is to the highest concentration of PhDs on the face of the earth, so that you can face your children in the eye, convert that intelligence and that education for life and for peace, and so that we can look each other in the eye as hermanos, como vecinos, and have a future como nuevos mexicanos. Thank you.